Guys, Marsing here, bringing you another Dragon Ball Z Dokkan battle video, and so boy, do we have a video to go over today. So last night, or at least it was for me UK time, I think it was like 10:30 PM or something, Truth posted this video, long requested. I've seen people in his comments talking about it, people have asked me about it, but obviously being on global, it's not something that I have the capacity to do at the moment, but Truth finally released his Heroes versus the Sinshenron event, hardest event in the game, comes with the 8th anniversary, and the first thing that you will immediately notice about this video, if you haven't watched it, is that it is an hour and 40 minutes long. So obviously straight away people were making jokes about the runtime, you know, obviously Mans was going through it, descending into levels of madness many thought not possible by the time we get to the end of this full hour and 40 minutes. That's 100 minutes runtime of using the Heroes team. And so obviously a lot of people sent the link to me, a lot of people have asked me about it, all that stuff. So I've sat and watched it. Obviously I wasn't going to make a video reacting to it or anything like that until I watched the whole thing, and obviously I'm not going to react to the video like a normal reaction kind of thing because it is an hour and 40 minutes long. But after finally sitting through it, I wanted to go through my reaction. Now funnily enough, whilst in the middle of watching it, I was kind of like live tweeting some comments about what I thought of the progress so far. And Truth did actually reply to some of them, and we had a bit of a back and forth about the Heroes team. So I want it to be very clear that obviously, like, Truth and I are on good terms. I would consider Truth one of my friends in the Dokkan community. We don't always agree on everything. You know, we had our big Super Battle Road King rivalry back in the day. But most of that is just for, like, the fun on the timeline, right? This is not in any way supposed to be a video slandering Truth or his opinion on the Heroes team. I do agree with a lot of the things that he says in this video. So I feel like I kind of have to get a bunch of disclaimers in here right at the beginning, because I know people know me as like the Heroes guy, right? I mentioned this yesterday when I did the Heroes versus Burst Mode video. And I have a reputation, especially on Twitter, especially when it comes to the Heroes haters, of being somebody that just defends Heroes like non-stop, right? I guess the Heroes dick rider would be the term that a lot of people would use. But I want to make it very, very clear, as I have done on Twitter multiple times, but I feel like people just ignore that for the purposes of their own arguments, I guess. But the Heroes units have a lot of problems. The Heroes team itself has a lot of problems. My biggest issue with how people respond to the Heroes team is when people say things that are just flat out not true. Right, I talked about this a little bit in the Burst Mode video yesterday. You guys, obviously, I'm not going to assume everyone will have seen it. I'm sure some people will probably watch this video solely because of the Truth video and maybe even haven't even watched any of my videos before. So I'm not going to assume that you guys have seen that. But the thing that I guess got me the reputation of being the Heroes defender is when Heroes came out last year, I had a lot of fun using the units, I had a lot of fun using the team, even though I had criticisms of the units, right? There are definitely flaws in their design, 100%, but the reason I would get into so many of these, like, arguments and debates on the timeline is because people would be saying things like, you know, the team is bad on release, like, this team is bad, whereas, like, I no-itemed every single event in the game with both versions of the team, the full super build and the full extreme build. So that's where it just does not compute for me, right? Like, if a team can beat every single event that's available in the game with no items, how is that team bad? Like, the team, you can still say the team has problems, which it does, and has, you know, issues with its design, which it does, but you can't call it bad if it beats all the content in the game. Like, that just doesn't make any sense to me, right? And so obviously that's where the Sinshenron event comes in as, like, the big deciding factor, right? Is the fact that this is an event that the Heroes team seemingly cannot beat, or at least especially with no items. But that's kind of a separate topic that we can get into very briefly. So yeah, I like the Heroes units, they're fun. I like them because they are different and unique, right? Growing up, I always liked this idea of like, oh, look how cool it is to see art of like Trunks as a Super Saiyan 3 or Gohan as a Super Saiyan 4, because they never got these forms in the show. And so Heroes gives us the ability to have those units in Dokkan, and I think it's fun, right? Now, as I've already said, the units have a lot of restrictions, which I think is definitely their biggest problem. When we look at the units that released last year, I think the biggest mistake that they made was tying the units down so badly to super and extreme types. So Limit Breaker, Super Saiyan 4, Goku and Vegeta, to get their full passives active, they need to be on a full super team. Well, I think for them it's a full super rotation. For Hearts, to get his full passive, he needs to have a full extreme team. It's not even a rotation, it's a full extreme team. Which, the problem with that is, there are a few good units. Like, this is one of my biggest problems with this truth video straight away, is that there are quite a few units in this video that I think are decent, or can be good in certain situations, that in this video, he just calls them and their design flat out bad, which I don't agree with, right? Now, again, we sort of had a bit of back and forth on Twitter before I made this video, and he does, I get the impression from some of the things that he said, that maybe some of the comments he made in this video, he does specifically mean about this event, but he doesn't, like, clarify that when he says it in the video. So, the big one that comes up is Silas. Silas is a good unit. Out of the Easy A's from last year, he was probably one of the best. Once he transforms, not only does he have like the links like Big Bad Bosses, he can put out some big attack stat numbers, and he's been calced, as long as you get his like additional supers from his hidden potential, from his passive, he's been calced as getting to over 1 million defense, which is good. But he gets all of that defense when he super attacks. So obviously if you take him up against a boss like this, like the turn we're seeing on the screen right now, where you're fighting an AGL boss that does AoE attacks, then yeah, obviously he's not good in that scenario. So if he's specifically talking about his design for the SYN event, then I could agree that Silas is probably not one of the best units that you can use. But in the video, he just straight up says that Silas is bad when he transforms, and his design is bad, which I don't agree with. Like, even again, you could say he's not like an amazingly designed unit, because nowadays a unit that is only getting defense from raw defense and they don't have like dodge or damage reduction or guard or anything like that, then obviously big bosses can still hit you for a ton of damage. Like, we've seen the complaints I've made recently with like some of my 23rd World Tournament Goku videos, where even when he's rocking like 900k defense, if he doesn't guard, he still takes 900k damage from the Metal Cooler Core. So raw defense really isn't enough to cut it, but you know, having 1 million raw defense is pretty good, right? It's just not very good when you're fighting a type disadvantage boss that AoEs you. So that is one thing straight away. Now, one thing I do want to make very clear, again, this isn't supposed to be a video just trashing on Truth or this video. Like, I know firsthand, those of you who came out to the streams that I did, where we were beating the final Red Ribbon Army Red Zone stages with no items with the Heroes team, that, like, the team's biggest issue is consistency, right? The team can beat some of these difficult events with no items, but you're probably not going to do it on, like, the first try. And things like the Gamma's Red Zone, which I think ended up being the hardest one, took me, because obviously limited attempts per day, it took me like, what, 2 weeks of daily streams, because you only get 5 attempts. So unfortunately, as any attempts where you know, get immediately supered in slot 1 and die, that's one of your 5 attempts for the day gone. Now, the Sinshenron event will be interesting because it's unlimited tries, and because my community is very big on pushing the Heroes agenda, I have a lot of people on my friends list that will be able to set Hearts or the Limit Breaker Super Saiyan 4s, so I won't be limited to trying, like, you know, 3 times a day and then have to just try again tomorrow. So, one thing I wanted to say straight up, the video's already going on a bit longer than I thought, but there's a few things that Truth absolutely gets right in this video about the Heroes team, and I want to highlight those first, right? This isn't just a video of me like completely dumping on all of his opinions. So the big one that we talked about already is the restrictions, right? Units being restricted to only being used on the heroes team. Whilst that's not really relevant to this video because it's about the heroes team, it does kind of suck for the units in general because it means you can't run them in other places, which is kind of disappointing. Now, Great Saiyaman 3 is one of the best heroes units, I think, and his restriction is only time travelers. So if we do ever get a really big, like, good time travelers buff, like a new 200% lead, like if we're going to get a new Goku Black at some point, and then that time travelers team becomes really good, like Great Saiyaman 3 could have a place on that team. But the units that are restricted to heroes or crossover, they obviously get the worst end of the stick. So we already kind of talked about that a little bit. Now, we talked a little bit as well kind of about Sealess, but it applies to a lot of other units. A lot of the heroes units get defense when they super, and that's where they get the majority of their defense. So obviously in an event like SYN, where not only does the AGL phase AoE you, but the final phase repeatedly AoEs you, then yeah, obviously the heroes team is not really in a great place to deal with that scenario. And it's just kind of one of those things that units that get their defense only when they super are not necessarily bad, but when you have a whole team where almost all of the units are only getting their defense on super, then obviously that is bad, right? And I'm never going to say that it's not, but certain events, I guess, are just not good for certain teams. The heroes team absolutely needs more units that have defense at the start of turn, because even some of their best tanks, Xeno Super Saiyan 3 Goku, Super Saiyan 4 Gohan, they get extra defense on super as well, so they are better at tanking after they've super attacked. So too many units needing to super to get their defense obviously puts the team at a disadvantage against tough bosses that drop AoEs, and unfortunately there's just not much you can do about that. That's where I'm kind of split on the, like, calling them badly designed, because like I said, units getting defense on super isn't necessarily the worst thing in the world, but when your whole team is only getting defense on super, then obviously that is bad. So that one's definitely a weird one, because remember, only SYN and then like Broly with his super, those are the only two of the toughest fights in the game that have AoEs, right? So a team definitely, like the heroes team definitely has a big disadvantage against the SYN fight, right? And then the final one, which is very true, is the team doesn't have one crazy strong pillar that you can build the team around. I think the thing Truth specifically says in the video is that if this team had like LR Bulma, the new unit that's just come out and is like the best unit in the game, if she was a heroes unit, then you probably could beat this event with the team because she could hard carry the team. I mean, you probably would still need some good RNG along the way, right? But yeah, the team needs a strong pillar. Now, this year's Heroes event is going to see the Easy A's for Super Saiyan 4 Vegito and Super Saiyan 4 Broly. When they Easy A, they basically have like LR stats, which is going to be very good for the team, because the other big criticism, which is very true, is that the Heroes team doesn't have any LRs. And obviously when the new units come out, you know, they don't have Easy A's. Some of the Easy A units are obviously worth using, but the overall HP of the team is a lot lower than the other teams in the meta. So if you're taking like 400k from a super, on some of these teams where you have like 750k HP, that's not the end of the world. But if you're taking 400k on a team where you have like 550k HP, then that is pretty bad, especially when, again, if you're going to suddenly start taking a bunch of AoEs, your other units on the rotation aren't tanking normal attacks for double-digit damage. So that is definitely very true. So I wanted to highlight some of these things because, like, again, I don't want people coming into this video thinking that this is just me trying to, like, dunk on Truth and saying that he did everything wrong, blah, blah, blah. But there are a couple of things that he definitely did wrong, and it does make the video kind of funny. There's a couple of points, like, we get over 40 minutes into the video before he realizes that you have to have a full extreme team in order for Hearts to have his full passive active. Which, I mean, if you're going to make a video that's this long, that's filled with so much slander, it probably is a good idea to know what the units do. Which is just, like, again, it's not me trying to be overly critical, but it is just really funny. Like, there's points in the video, I was joking about on Twitter that I should have kept timestamps, but there's bits in the video where, like, a unit will get hit and die, and the run ends, and then Truth will make a joke. So he's like, see guys, the Heroes team is good. It's just me. I'm just bad at the game. But like, he is using the team wrong. Like, so that kind of stuff is just funny, right? Because I know it's very much his personality to be very overly like positive or negative sometimes for like comedic effect. But it is kind of funny when you make a joke about a unit's performance, but you're not using the unit correctly, right? Like there's a bit very early on where Limit Breaker Super Saiyan 4 Goku, I think it's one of the SYN AoEs in the AGL phase, he takes a lot more damage than Truth was expecting him to take, and then he makes a comment about him being terrible, like he absolutely should not be taking that level of damage, but it's because he's not on a full super rotation, so he's not getting his damage reduction. So obviously he's going to take more damage. Now again, I'm not trying to defend the design of Limit Breaker Super Saiyan 4 Goku. He has flaws out the wazoo, right? He could be a much better unit. But those are some of the parts about the video that I did find kind of funny, right? Like, the Heroes team, I keep saying this because I need to drill this into people's mind that I do accept this. The Heroes team has a ton of flaws and there's a lot of things wrong with the designs of some of the units. But if we're going to criticize them, could we actually criticize the actual flaws in their design, right? Like, let's not complain that Super Saiyan 4 Goku takes too much damage when he's on a rotation where he doesn't have his damage reduction active, because whilst it's annoying that he has that restriction, that's how he's supposed to be run on a full super class rotation, which is annoying, right? It's one of the reasons why he's not as good as he could be. I think Minato was commenting a little bit on the conversation, and kind of I said to him, it's like, if they removed the super and extreme restrictions from Hearts and the Limit Breaker Super Saiyan 4s, immediately this team would be so much better, because you would be able to run Hearts and the Limit Breaker Super Saiyan 4s, and then some of the best units like Saiyaman, potentially Sealess, like all on the same team together, and it wouldn't be such a huge issue. So it is what it is. But like I say, Truth and I, we have our jokes, we have our back and forths. None of this is meant to be any hard feelings towards him. You know, I've tried to be fair in my criticisms of what at least I think he was saying. Like, if I've obviously misinterpreted anything or the meaning of anything he was trying to say, then obviously, you know, I'm happy to revise that in the comment section. And he did make a joke, which, you know, you guys know I'm going to be doing this anyway, but someone made a joke on our comments back and forth saying like, please dad, stop fighting or whatever. And he replied saying he's intentionally drawing attention to this exchange so that I can beat SYN with the Heroes team in July, and it will make my video a big deal. So, you know, I will strive to do so. I don't know how it's going to go, obviously. I mean, I feel like in this video, there's a couple of runs where we see that if you get good RNG, you can at least get to the final phase, right? I think he only gets to the final phase in this entire video, like twice, which is pretty crazy. But yeah, maybe it can be done. And then the thing I wanted to say actually as well that I kind of forgot, and I guess we'll just have to get it in here at the end if anyone's still listening, is that the whole no items thing. And I know this has been raging in the community for a long time, and I feel partially responsible for some of this discourse with like how big, you know, the big rivalry between me and Truth doing all the Super Battle Road stages with no items. No items runs are a challenge that we put on ourselves to make the game more fun, to make the game more challenging. And then also I do understand the merit of, if you're trying to show the power of a team and how good that team is, showing that that team can beat difficult events without you even having to use items obviously goes a long way to show how good that team is. But the flip side of that is that the Sinshenron event is the hardest event in the game. So if a team can't beat that event because you're trying to do a no items run, does that necessarily mean the team is bad? Like, if you can beat that event using items, which, you know, items are in the game, the items are there for you to use, I do not doubt that the Heroes team can beat this SYN event if you use items and like a support memory, right? So I know the whole point of the Truce video is to try and see whether they can beat them with no items, and it seems like it is close to impossible, right? But with items, this team could beat that event. And considering this event came out, you know, numerous months after they released, for Global it's not even out yet, which maybe that plays some role in how they design the power level of these units. I don't know, because if they released the 2022 Heroes units, right, and they were strong enough to absolutely like ruffle stomp the SYN event when it came out for the anniversary 3 months later for JP, that means that the team would be able to destroy everything on Global until the anniversary came out like 7 months later. So I know there is a problem with people's biggest issue with the Heroes team is how quickly the units age, but I wonder if the sync between Global and JP is one of the reasons why they are as powerful as they are, right? Because they come out on both versions at the same time. If they were strong enough to dominate the upcoming anniversary content, that means on Global they would be dominant for like 7 months, and it's a team that is comprised from a guaranteed featured SSR banner. So you could, in like a couple of 100 stones, rainbow some of the best units from that banner, and then if that team is destroying all the content in the game for 7 months, then you know, from their perspective, that team is probably too powerful. So I don't know, you guys let me know what you think down below. I know some people will try and ignore all of the caveats that I've put into this video, so I want to make it very clear at the end again here that I know the Heroes team has a bunch of flaws. The Heroes team is absolutely not in any way like one of the best teams in the game. The team is just fun to use and can beat events. Like, you know, maybe it takes a few tries, maybe you have to use items, but the Heroes team is decent, right? I don't know if I would even go as far as to say it's good when we're talking about like this event in particular, but you know, if you're using items which are available to use in the game, you can beat every single event in the game other than SYN, like not necessarily easily, but I beat them all with no items, so you can beat them with items. Now, again, the team has its problems, the unit's restrictions, some of them are just unfathomably dumb why they decided to give them those restrictions. But my biggest thing and my biggest takeaway from all of this has always just been that I feel like the Heroes units get too hard a time, right? People expect them to be like, you know, Dokkan Fest exclusive, like top 5 TUR in the game level, when they are units that are given away on a guaranteed featured banner, which I don't know if they don't want to make units that are on guaranteed featured banners too powerful. I don't know. Maybe they saw how ridiculous the stats were going to be for Broly and Vegito when they get their Easy A's and figured they needed to pump the brakes a little bit and make the units a little bit weaker. I think that is a terrible reason, by the way, because obviously the units aren't going to Easy A for like 3 years. So why would you nerf how good the units are when they release just so that when they Easy A in 3 years time they're not OP? Like, that seems really dumb. But yeah, anyway, go watch Truth's video. It's pretty fun. Seeing him descend into madness throughout the course of the video. It's definitely entertaining, but yeah, there's some interesting takeaways from it. I will be trying it myself when the anniversary comes to Global. I guess we'll see how it goes, but let me know what you guys think down below in the comment section. Again, as I've already said, no hard feelings to Truth. Feel free to comment down below if you think I've gotten anything wrong, or yeah, it's just all good. So let me know what you guys think down below. Like I said, if you don't like the Heroes team, that's cool, but a lot of us appreciate the units. We think they're fun to use, and we can beat events with them. So at the end of the day, like, the game is for playing, is for having fun. Not every single team that comes out needs to be, you know, demolishing everything in the game with no items. But let me know what you guys think down below in the comment section. So that is going to be it for the video, guys. This has been the Masked Ningen. Smash that like button, subscribe to the channel if you are new. Check out the links down below for the Discord and the merch store, and I will see you all again soon. Have a good one.